I've got two vintage Marshalls here in front of me. This is my own personal 100 watt JMP, hand wired as you can see, but it is a metal panel, not a Plexi. And this amplifier was originally a super bass, and then the owner had it converted to super lead, and it's actually got a sticker on the back of it. You can see it happened in 1974, I think is what I can see from here. I did a whole video on this amp, restoring it, working on it. I did a recap. I improved the conversion to the super lead, but I also kept some super bass components in it. So it's kind of a hybrid. It's a really cool amp. I added a master volume as well, Larmar. This thing sounds incredible. I maintained the best live tone I've ever had was with this amplifier. It's awesome. It's also very unruly and crazy, and with this giant bright cap requires quite a high volume level to get any good tone out of it. And then you have so much gain that, you're kind of limited on what you can do. So all that to say, it's a bit hard to work with, but the sound is unbelievable. Cue this amp. So this is a 1967 50 watt Plexi, an actual Plexi. And this thing might be one of the best sounding amps I've ever heard. No, it's definitely one of the best sounding amps I've ever heard. And this is very similar. If you look at these two, the circuits are almost identical with a couple small changes, very, very small changes. So I kind of want to try converting this back to super bass because most of the components are there for that, and see if I like this amp more, or rather it's more versatile for me, more usable for what I need it to do in that configuration. And that may or may not quell my desire for something like this, because this amp sounds unbelievable. So I'm going to quickly run through the differences I noticed just looking at it with them side by side, and then yeah, we'll just kind of do the conversion, and I'll do a little recording with the looper just before and after, something simple through the aux box, so I have some kind of baseline to judge it by. And then yeah, maybe down the line we'll plug it into the Pulsonic loaded greenback cab and see how it sounds then. But for now, we're just trying to get an idea of whether this is an improvement for me, step in the right direction or not. So let's get to it, and I'll show you guys kind of the differences I notice. Having the amp side by side on the workbench is really fascinating because it really just shows not a lot changed from 1967 forward. And because I kept a lot of this amp super bass, I know the super bass circuit barely ever changed for basically its run. So really interesting, but I'm just going to point out a few things we're going to have to remove to get it closer to that Plexi over there. So the bright cap here, 4,700 picofarad, that's gone. I added this to the bass channel just to mess with that a little bit. We'll pull that out as well. Over here, the main one, not the main, but one of the main differences is the shared or split cathode. So in the super lead circuit like this it is a split cathode. So one of the cathodes is going here through this cap, and on a super bass, that is a shared cathode. So both cathodes are sharing the same resistor and capacitor. It's a very large cap, 220, 320 microfarad, somewhere in that range. So on a super lead, this is a 0.68 or 680 nanofarad cathode bypass cap, and it's split. So this does change quite a lot for the amplifier. And another different, all of the rest of this is the same. This cap right here, which makes one channel the treble, one the normal channel. So on the Plexi, it's a 500 picofarad. On this amp, it is a 750 picofarad. So fairly similar. This cap right here also does not exist on the Plexi. So both of the resistor values underneath are the same. One is an 820 and one is 100K. Yeah, I believe that's the case. So this is an addition that's on top of this cathode right here for V2A. So we'll be pulling that as well. This 250 picofarad is the same value as what's in that Marshall Plexi. This resistor value right here is also the same. This is a super bass spec, if I remember correctly, and I just left it. All of the rest of this is the same, I believe. Let me just look at it a little bit closer. So on the 67 Plexi, it's got the dual cap right here, whereas it uses capacitors, more can caps elsewhere in the amplifier. So just a bit of a different layout, but I believe all of the values are the same. Lots of 22 nanofarad caps here. Here that's the same. Let's see where else. These two are both 22 nanofarad on the Plexi as well. That's all the same. This one right here is also 22 nanofarad. That's the same. And then the super bass spec, it's a 0.1, a 0.1, and a 0.1. So all of that is the same between them. They have a 47 picofarad cap right here. That's also the same. This 10K resistor, also the same. So yeah, there's just a lot of similarities if you can't tell. And I'll have to check. Oh, another difference is the grid stoppers. So this amp has 1.5K grid stoppers that are shared between the two sets of tubes, whereas the 67s didn't have any grid stoppers, but that's not a huge difference. They both have 1K resistors, screen grid resistors. I don't know if that's original on the 67, but they were replaced or added to that amplifier. Everything else I think is the same. Trying to see if there's anything else I noticed right off the bat. Potentially the negative feedback connected to which output might be different. I'm going to look at that right now. Looking at the negative feedback, actually this uses a 100K resistor, and then the wire is going to the 4 ohm jack or 4 ohm connection on the impedance selector. And then looking over at the Plexi, it has a 27K, so quite a bit different, 27K negative feedback resistor. And then the wire itself is going to the selection part of the impedance selector, meaning it changes depending on what impedance you set it at, which is interesting. I don't know if that's factory or not. I can't really tell. So yeah, we were trying the amp at 16 ohms, sounded great. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never played with that before to see what the sound differences are going from negative feedback at 4 ohm, 8 ohm, or 16 ohm taps. So we might have to play with that. And then also this resistor, but I think we're going to leave those as is for now and see if I like it, and then we can start tweaking it. I found this so interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Man, I'm so glad I did this. So high level, we got these two amps to sound very, very close to each other with just circuit tweaks. So all of the settings on the amp stayed the same. I never touched them. You guys heard the first clip with the amp, how I had it before, more of a super lead, super bright and aggressive, lots and lots of gain. And then with just circuit tweaks, not touching the EQ, we got it incredibly close to the Plexi here. Seemed like it had a bit more gain, a bit more low end kind of punch. Makes sense. 100 watt. It's got higher voltages in it. So that all makes sense, but I bet we can adjust some of the knobs to get it much closer, even still. But just based off of circuit changes alone, we got them that close, which is awesome. I want to touch on the aux real quick. So the aux was not set up to give us the best tone in the world for either amp. It was just set up pretty neutral because we want it to be a constant where the cabinet, the speaker, and the microphone are all the same throughout the test. So really just hearing the circuit differences for the most part. Similarly, the knobs, neither amp was optimized. I would never run a super lead with the volume on 5 in the treble channel on its own with EQ how I had it set. I would never do that. But that's a sound where this amp can sound passable and this amp can sound passable. So I was just trying to give something neutral enough that both amps would work okay, because we're not trying to create the best tone in this comparison. It's literally just trying to compare the circuit tones and how they compare with everything else the same. So I just want to make that clear, because I know somebody's going to listen to it and go, that Marshall sucks, it sounds terrible. No, these amps are incredible, but they were just not set up to be the perfect optimized sound for either of them. So all that out of the way, I'm incredibly pleased. I'm going to do the permanent install of this going to the 16 ohm, the negative feedback, And then the resistor, I've got a 27K on the way to match the 27K there. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how this works. And this amp sounds incredible, but this has definitely scratched that itch for me now that I got them that close together. So very cool. I hope you guys enjoyed that.